Let me just give you a few highlights. The gun found in his hand was not responsible for his wounds. We have a picture in our book of him him on the ground with a gun in his hand. There's a shot, color photo. He's holding a .32 black gun, which, as we all know, is the drop gun that cops and killers use, made of parts of other guns. That was in his right hand, but they said he was killed by a silver antique pistol. And we have a photo of the weapon. The gun had fingerprints on it, but they weren't Vince Foster's. The gun was the type used by professional killers, as I said, not traceable, pieced together from parts of different guns. His GSR markings, the gunpowder burns, were defensive, like he was protecting himself, the poor guy. It's like,
well, they shot him in his office. They came and carpet cleaned it and scrubbed it, didn't tell anybody about it.
But he had carpet fibers on him. He had, pardon, not to be disrespectful, but a giant amount of semen in his underwear, which shows that he had sex right before he was murdered. And a lot of people, when you die, you do release a little sperm, but this was really a considerable amount. So there was sex involved. He was not acting in a depressed or suicidal way. His car wasn't there when they found his body. Then it showed up. I mean, his body was clearly moved, and there were blonde hairs on his clothes. I mean,
and they covered that all up. Yeah, the word is he and Hillary had a little falling out, and you don't do that with Miss Hillary.
I don't want to start naming, that gets into a whole other thing. But he was scheduled to have a private meeting the next day where he was going to resign. And, similarly, Dr. David Kelly, UN weapons inspector prior to the Iraq War.
He said they're going to kill me and I'll be found in the woods. And people saw guys in black uniforms run away from his body. What about Ron Brown, the Treasury, the Commerce Secretary?
Well,
I'm distracting you. Go back to Kelly.
Yeah, that's a great case. But no, Kelly, you're right. Kelly said to several people, because he knew that Blair was lying about Iraq, as was Bush and that gang. He knew Blair was lying. He knew all the facts. He said that he said to several people, if we go to war in Iraq, you'll find me dead in the woods, probably. And they found him dead in the woods. His body was moved. He had to, he was cut. When you shake someone's hand, Alex, that's how they kill people. It's one of the things in the CIA manual that we call C now, where you reach to shake the hand, but the person has a very sharp something in their hand, and they cut you towards them, and that's the kind of wound he had. And anyway, it's like, these bodies are dropping all over the place. Frank Olson, who was head of CIA Special Operations Division, and became increasingly uncomfortable with two things: the use of anthrax as a weapon on the civilians in North Korea, and brutal and often fatal interrogation techniques being worked on by the agency. So he tried to resign, was not allowed to. He was taken to a Manhattan hotel for therapy by a CIA psychiatrist when crashing through the 13th-story window of a room in Manhattan's Hotel Statler. It's now the Hotel Pennsylvania. I've been there, by the way. It was immediately ruled suicide, and the autopsy supported it. A second autopsy demanded by the family revealed that he had been knocked unconscious by a severe blunt force trauma to the back of his head prior to the fall. The Blue Ribbon panel also determined that the first autopsy was manipulated to appear as a suicide, and that numerous points and very substantial evidence clearly indicated that Olson was actually murdered. Now, here's another chilling fact, Alex. The two people in the Ford administration, this case dragged on. He was murdered in the 50s. His family finally got the exhumation in the 70s. So Ford was president, and they wanted to shut this family up. They wanted to pay them off. So who was in charge of buying them out and silencing them? And they weren't totally successful. They wound up finally giving them $750,000. Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were in charge of trying to stifle Olson's family. So these guys go way back. These are, they can't go to The Hague. These are war criminals. These are murderers. Now, Fred Hampton, who was just an incredible civil rights organizer, who was nonviolent, who was educating and feeding poor people. He was an alderman. I mean, this guy was serious. He was really an unsung hero of the civil rights movement. He died in a massive police attack at 4:45 a.m. And we determined that through forensic evidence, which is what I love about my partner, David Wayne. He's just microanalysis of all these events. And no one's been able to shoot any holes. I've been doing a lot of interviews, Alex, and a lot of them were motivated by me being on your show. And again, thank you. And no one can punch any holes on what we're saying, which is comforting for me, because I know you get worked up because you have facts, and I love your passion. But getting back to Fred Hampton, Hampton was completely unconscious during the entire police raid. He had been drugged by an informant, and the levels were so high that it was not possible that he fired back at the police as they alleged. It was a lie that, as police testified, over 200 shots were fired in a two-sided gun battle that lasted approximately 10 to 12 minutes. In reality, only one shot had been fired from inside the apartment near the front door, not from Fred Hampton. So his girlfriend is in bed with him with their baby, Alex. And forensic evidence verifies the eyewitness testimony that Hampton's body was dragged from his bed into the hallway and, still alive, was then executed with 2 shots to the head at point-blank range.
Exactly, and your book is just full of countless examples of this, letting you know you cannot believe an official story by a shadow government that brings in the narcotics, that runs the child kidnapping. It's unlimitedly evil what's going on. Look at Gary Webb, has a new book coming out, Pulitzer Prize winner. I'm talking to him. He can't wait to get this out, proving CIA drug dealing was continuing. He'd had to move. Men would break in his house that would come sliding down the drain, special forces style. They go in his house, have him write the suicide note, and then shoot him twice in the head. And then friends of his, who weren't really friends, come out and say, oh, it's quite normal to shoot yourself twice in the head. I mean, I want it on record, and I bet you want to get it on record. Yeah, they don't like going after people that are very prominent because they've been caught in that. But sometimes they do. I mean, Gary Webb was pretty darn prominent, and it's always the same. They throw you off a building. They inject you with drugs. They've got heart attack medications, or they shoot you in the head. Go ahead. Like
Danny Casolaro.
Exactly.
He was really an amazing researcher, and, they just murdered him. You talk about suicide, things being considered suicide or ruled suicide. You're in Texas, so you guys in Texas know a lot about Lyndon Johnson before the rest of the world. But in our research, we found that 2 Texans who got in the way of Lyndon Johnson's path to the White House paid with their lives. And John Stockwell, the former CIA officer, said Lyndon Johnson was corrupt to the core. Contrary to the recent sanitized versions by historians, Lyndon Johnson was one of the most ruthless politicians in history and directly connected to these and other murders performed by Mac Wallace, LBJ's personal henchman assassin. Henry Wallace was shot 5 times, Alex, with a bolt-action rifle, and they still got a suicide ruling. Even J. Edgar Hoover, when he was taking off his dress or putting it on, said, he wondered how someone could shoot themselves 5 times with a bolt-action. It's like, and Kurtelik was the accountant for the financial scam being run by Billy Saul Estes and linked to Lyndon Johnson. Estes later testified that Johnson personally ordered that Kurtelik be killed using hitman Mac Wallace. So Henry Marshall and Kurtelik were in the government, found out that Billy Saul Estes had empty silos, was claiming that he was getting all these wheat or corn or whatever subsidies, bilking the government for millions and millions of dollars to his buddy Lyndon Johnson. They were going to blow the whistle, and they were murdered by this.
Oh, yeah. I had family down here, but also in Dallas that knew the people in and around the Johnsons. And it was just well known. They would just kill people in local Austin business if they didn't like just somebody competing with them. They would have the hitman drop by and kill them. And I actually, I'm not going to get into it. I just had some family that actually went to school previously with one of LBJ's hitmen. It's an amazing story. But the point is that, yes, he was completely power mad and insane. Now, by the end of it, he was really bummed out. I actually know some of his family. I'm just going to leave it at that. And just a few weeks before he died, the last time they saw him, he came by and saw him and basically said, I've been horrible. It's been terrible. This has been wrong. And so it is true that at the end, when he grew his hair out and everything, I guess he wanted all that power. He was hyper dominant. But once he got all the power, he realized it was nothing.
Who are you talking about?
LBJ.
Yeah, LBJ, someone said that he committed suicide, and by that they meant his doctor said, if you smoke, you're going to die. And he continued smoking. I think he was a broken man, lying about Vietnam and having people whacked and not being loved by the people. I mean, he resigned. You know how that is for a guy with that gigantic ego the size of the sun to have to resign. I mean, that killed him. And I think from then on, he just said he smoked and he was they called him the nickname, as you know, I'm sure, Landslide Lyndon, which was a joke because he won an election by 28 votes.
Stuffing the ballot box, box 13. Now expanding on this, because people are going to kill me if I don't bring it up. There's a lot more in the book. It is an amazing book. We'll talk about it in the final segment. But people are begging me on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. It's pouring in. They want to talk about how in the world you came on the show and had Christopher Walken then sit in your lap. I know your wife's there with you and the dogs, and of course, Mr. Walken's happily married. It's now turned into a whole conspiracy theory of why he came and sat on your lap. I guess that was because that was the only chair, and you guys were doing comedic jokes there, but now it's turned into a conspiracy theory.
We're gay, Chris and I. We're gay. We're totally gay. No, it's like we're lovers. We're monogamous. We've been together since... I don't know, we've been together a long time. We're both married, but, it's like you can, if you have a platonic friendship with a man, Chris and I love each other. We're brothers, and, he, like you said, I was sitting on the edge of the couch and he just came. And, when... No,
it's a couch. There's not enough room. He kind of crammed him next to you. So he wasn't sitting in your lap. It just created that illusion. But, I mean, here's the deal. Sometimes I'll catch myself with an old friend. You want to just put your arm around him, and it's 100% non-sexual. But nowadays, everybody's so politically correct. You're like, oh, my gosh, I've got my arm around my buddy. He's going to think I'm, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm a very tactile person. All my male friends, they know I'm going to hug them. And plus, I have a gorgeous wife who I dream about. So, I mean, but, some interviewers have said to me over the years, I heard you're gay. And I said, yes, just to be provocative. I mean, so what?
No, exactly. People made jokes and say you work for the Vatican or you work for Israel. And I go, yes, it's all true.
We work for the government, and we're just, we're false flag provocateurs. The Jesuits were the greatest spies of all. They would join organizations, pretend they were in them, and then bring them down from within. The Jesuits were kind of a first kind of secret service.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. But in fact, I'm not bashing Catholics here, but it is true that the Nazis, at least in their organization, the SS was modeled off the Jesuits.
They were singing Christmas carols, Nazis, while babies and people.
It's pretty amazing. Let's get back into the book. But I didn't even mean to get off into that little joke for 14-year-old kids that were watching the video going, look gay. Very, very funny. It's amazing. All right, we'll be right back with our guest, Richard Belzer. His new book is out. It's Dead Wrong. We'll give you his website as well. Stay with us. We're back live. Richard Belzer is our guest for this little segment. The next segment, then we've got, back by extremely popular demand, we have Dr. Peter Glidden joining us for the history of the medical tyranny. He started it last time, and I want to go deeply into it this time. One little note, I feel terrible. I mean, it's the agony of the ecstasy of success and getting the word out, because that's what thrills me. It's not jewels, diamonds, houses. No, I mean, reaching out.